Well, what's the crack? How are you getting on? You're all very welcome to 138 for Buckshot. What's the crack, everybody? How are you getting along? This is Thursday, the 2nd of April, as patrons will hear it, but your average folk, for general release, you will hear this on the 3rd of April. My thanks very much for jumping on board. If it's your first time, of course, hit subscribe. So you know that's the crack. This is out on a regular basis. I will, as you will be hearing this, I'll already have recorded next week's interview, and the Ramble Pod is out on the reg if you want to have a look back through it there. How are you getting on? Lads, back doing a gig again, back in the Roisin Dove virtually tonight, as you will hear it, being Friday the 3rd. I'm back there tonight, and it's going to be a proper bit of crack, and then a bit of actual, let's get into it, stand-up. I'm on with Bernard Casey, who's on, who else is on? Andrew Maxwell, Joe Caulfield, and Phil Jupitus. A lot of the people who are on the Laughter at the Air. Terry Alderton is on as well. I could be wrong. I'm not sure who else is on, but it looks like a tasty enough lineup. Should be good. So tune in. It's also, they're asking for donations for the salmon community in Galway, because bad and all as we all have it, we have a fucking roof over our head. You know what I mean? For the most part, anybody listen to this, you most likely have a roof over your head. At the very least, you have earphones. You have a mobile device where you're listening to podcasts, and everybody, it's easy to just kind of consider yourself in this situation, but it's a good old fucking thing. And look, it'll be a decent old show anyway to jump on, have a bit of crack. Myself, Carl and Bernard will be the only Irish people actually on it, but Maxwell, but sure, he lives in the UK. He's married to a UK one, so you know yourself. And if you're listening to this on Friday the 3rd, I'll be on the final furlong on around the 5-6 o'clock mark. I think they have it on News Talk. It's a bit of crack, you know what I mean? I'm not sure who else I'm on with, but they've given us all the questions and stuff to chat about already. But sure, you know, these are somewhat gigs, so this is where I normally stick the gigs bit. Also, if you're not following me on a social platform and you want to keep up to date, and I've been fairly active of late, especially on the Tom Moran comedy one on Instagram. So jump over there if you want to see some stupid shit that I do on a regular basis. Or if this is your first time jumping aboard, Buckshot Podcast on Instagram as well, where you can see the full lineup of everybody who's been on. So if you want to just skip through rather than just seeing names if you don't recognize it, you know what I mean? If it's more interactive to see a picture, go on over there. Like I said, thanks very much to the Patreons. My fucking headphones shit the bed this morning. Don't know what's wrong with them. So thanks to the Patreons, I will be buying a new set of headphones, because you need headphones when you're editing. So there you go. If you do want to contribute to the show, new Patreons and people increasing. I normally am able to send a message, but I wasn't able to get a message sent to a brand new Patreon that came on this morning, Kelly. Thank you very much. I don't know why Patreon wouldn't let me send you a message. I don't know what it was, but if you're listening to this, thank you very much. Thank you very much to everybody who increased and jumped on board new. It's fucking class. It's class. And the messages have been flying in today. I love that shit. Messages flying in today from people who are just going, keep it up. Great. Delighted to keep it up. Delighted. So, moving on to today's episode. Today, again, it was done over Skype. Like, I've turned into a complete psychopath for sound. But when you've headphones in for like fucking 5 hours, you get real pernickety. It's actually pretty good. The sound is pretty good. It's better than last week's. And I've gotten kind of nifty at cleaning it up and editing it. Fuck, I'd want to for 5.5-6 hours. So it's in a nice place. But it's as good as we can do at the minute without actual proper studio mics sitting, you know, close to each other and all the rest of it. I don't have the kind of listeners that give out to people. Nobody gives me any shit. Moving on, today's guest, who I've been listening to now for not just the length of the podcast, but for 5 or 6 hours. Tom Moran, he's a hell of a nice guy. He's a stand-up comedian. He's in Coppers the Musical and a bunch of other stuff. His own show on the go. Comedically Heartbroken is the name of it. It did brilliantly in Smock Alley, and I've heard fantastic things about it. We had a right powerful chat. Some man to talk. If you're tuning in to listen to me, I barely get in on this act at all. But I didn't have to. You just wind up a good man like this, and he just gets going. We got deep. We had good crack. All round, I really, really enjoyed this one. I think it's perfect for the times we're living in. So, sit back, lie down, go for a jog, go for a walk, whatever you're doing, but enjoy the brilliant Tom Moran. Tom Moran, thanks very much for joining me on Buckshot.
No bother, Tom.
From the bunker of County Meath.
Yes, indeed. I'll let you off calling it a bunker for now.
Meath is all right, in fairness. As counties go, there's worse ones than Meath, like.
Yeah, I like it. I like it, but I miss Dublin, but like I think it's not. There's something nice about being in the countryside for the lockdown. Do you know, like being in an
Oh
apartment
yeah,
in Dublin, it'd be a bit grim.
that's my biggest thing because we lived in Portobello for ages, and my biggest thing was as I got older, I started to think more about this kind of stuff. I was like, man, I'm kind of claustrophobic in here. Like everybody has skinny jeans. I don't fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People. A lot of wine drinkers around me, like and stuff. So, and now we're out the country. It was like, oh right, we can. So nothing actually looks any different for me either. Out here, it's just you can kind of take a breath of air. Like I think I might freak out a small bit. You said you were telling me we went to record this yesterday, but every other bastard on the planet was on Skype at the time.
Yeah.
It's Dunboyne, is it?
Yeah, Dunboyne. So I lived there my whole life, like, and it's great. Like, we're kind of in the middle of a town, but at the same time, you're like 2 minutes if you want to go out onto the back roads and go for a run. Do you know, it's nice. Like, I had like a 7 minute walk to school and probably like a 5 minute walk to the bus stop, and it's one of them. Dunboyne's one of them weird places where you're right in the border, so you get Dublin bus. So like you kind of have the advantages of the city in a way, and that regularity of transport and stuff, especially as a young fella if you're commuting in and out. But also it is parochial, it's small
Oh
and
yeah.
it's GAA, and it's like it's got those good parts of the country as well. So it was like I don't feel proper country, I don't feel proper dub, but I'm very much a Mead man. I love Mead, and I if it comes to the GAA or something like that, Mead is like my identity in that sense. But like Dublin very much feels like home at the same time.
I bet if anybody ever heard a hint of your accent, from somewhere else in the country, like Galway, and they went, "What part of Dublin are you from?" You'd fucking freak out.
Oh, and it happens all the time. And I think especially because doing bits like voiceover and stuff, and they want that sort of neutral thing, do you know? Like
That's neutral, Tom. I've gotten a neutral one too in inverted commas. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
By
yeah,
neutral, I mean, can you soften a Dublin accent, please? Yeah.
exactly. Oh, they do. Like whenever they say it to me, I'm just kind of like, all right, so it's less 39A and more 46A. Do you know what I mean? Like they mean just outside it up a little bit. That's what they
Yeah.
mean. They just won't say it like that. But yeah,
Dunboyne still, I still get a shudder when I think, even though it's a fine town, I
yeah.
did a corporate gig one time, a Christmas corporate gig in Dunboyne Castle, and it was for a pharmaceutical company, and nobody in the company seemed to like each other. Do you know what I mean? They were all there, and Mary from HR had booked in some comedians, and oh my Jesus. And I had a mental breakdown because I think we had a shop at the time, a toy shop, and I'd been awake for like fucking 50 hours or something. I did this gig, and halfway during it, I just sat on the edge of the stage. I went, "Look, you cunts, you better get on fucking board with this, because I'm ready to fucking snap." And you could see they were like, for my betterment, they kind of went, "Oh, the poor man."
You just emotionally blackmailed an audience,
Oh yeah. But a fine time. Tell me this: the last kind of the before days, before the apocalypse. You were the last I heard or seen of you was Smock Alley, your own show. It was, what was it called?
So it's called Comedically Heartbroken.
Yeah, what was the choice in jumping? You going, I'm writing a one-man show, and going, like, that's ballsy that you didn't, try it in a little festival somewhere first. You went, give me Smock Alley.
Yeah, so the way it worked out was great actually, because it's a festival that they do there called Seen and Heard, and they it's 4 new work. So basically they'll give you 2 nights in the theatre and they'll give you half a slot. So you're basically paired with another show. And the sort of idea of it is that you use it to workshop towards a full show. So ultimately, like, my goal with this show will be to do it in the Dublin Fringe Festival, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and hopefully over in London somewhere. I'd love to do it in the Soho Theatre or somewhere like that. And it's great. It gives you a sounding board. Now, I kind of knew what I was about and I knew what I wanted to do. And basically, yeah, so like if you'd think of a show as like a full arc, I basically made the first half of the arc, and now the second half will be kind of like knocking down a lot of the dominoes that are sort of set up across the first half. So like it was great. And for me, I'd written solo shows before, but they were very much theatre based, and like I know you have experienced this as well, where like there wasn't really that scope for a bit more audience interaction or a bit of crack, or just a bit like to go with the moment or whatever was happening in the room. You couldn't really name that in a theatre setting because you're very much on book and it's written and it's rigid. And I just sort of felt a little bit like I'd love to take it like that live. Like the thing that's special about theatre and comedy is that it is live, and I was like, well, how can we embrace that as much as possible while also keeping the bits of like theatre and kind of like comedy theatre that I love, which is a little bit more sort of licensed to not have to be funny for 60 minutes, like to make it like absolutely 45, 50 minutes are very funny, and then 10 minutes are a bit more like introspective and a little bit more deep, and to kind of give myself license for that as well.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the hour show vibe rather than comedy club 15-minute slot where you have the foot on the floor the whole, and that's the thing, because people won't, like, also I found, because I remember the first time I did Edinburgh, I took it like I put the pace of a 15-minute on an hour, and sweet Jesus, people were beaten up and you're losing them. So, do you know, they're going, "Ara, fuck it." Yeah. It's a bit of a story there, like, relax. I quickly realised about 10 shows in, oh, Jesus Christ, I better let this soak a bit in the middle, you know what I mean? For the want of a better phrase, like.
Yeah, and I like that. Even in the comedians I like, there's like some of them I'm like, I don't even know, are they of course they're comedians, like they are, but if you see like an hour show of like someone like Mike Birbiglia is someone I really like, but he's like a storyteller, really. Now he's funny, he's naturally funny, and he sort of gets that for free, but like his stories are like beautifully structured and stuff like that, and he's talking about real stuff, like he's generally talking about his real life and his real situation, and yeah, I just find there to be something really engaging about that, and the performers that I tend to go towards do stuff like that. So I was kind of like, right, how can I make the most me version of something like that? And yeah, it turned into comedically heartbroken. It was so funny. Even last night I was doing a different interview over the phone with a radio station, and they were asking about it, and I was like, it's actually the worst topic to do a show about, because ultimately the show is kind of about being single and being heartbroken. Now it's as much about like love as it is about that, but it's actually an awful thing to talk about in some ways, because you end up just having to talk about being single all the time, which is just
funny, because right now, if you were a woman, that would be that'd be the hottest topic ever, because that is a lot of the American female comedians seem to be leaning into being single, and heartbroken and all the rest of it. So yeah, you've only got being, a straight white male against you there, Tom.
Yeah, and but it's funny as well, because I've submitted it to the Dublin Fringe now. God only knows if that happened. That's in September, so I'm hopeful that they might still do that, because and Fringe is about smaller audiences. So I hope, but look, who knows? But anyway, the application process is pretty difficult to get in. Like 1 in 6, 1 in 7 shows get in. So and even doing the application, like, it's tricky, because you're asking questions, and you know yourself, especially as a comedian, like the answers to like questions like why now, which is always difficult, because you're kind of like, the answer for me like was sort of like, well, it's a story I'm interested in telling right now. To be honest, I probably won't be interested in talking about this in a year or two, like I'll have moved on in my life and things like that. But as well, I was like, there is something interesting about Ireland at the moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, like, but correct me if I'm wrong, but the two biggest cultural influences in the country right now, I would say, are Blind Boy Boat Club's podcast and the Tommy Tiernan chat show on RTE. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're the two things that probably people are talking about and connecting with more than anything. I was like, that is interesting, because like, to me, what that is that's just two Irish men who are doing something that Irish men traditionally aren't very good at, which is kind of being vulnerable, talking about like their feelings, their connection, masculinity, like vulnerability. I was like, that is interesting. You're saying about like if that's what a lot of American female comedians are talking about, and you're right. And I'm like, but it's interesting if that starts to seep into like Irish culture a bit more, which I think Tiernan and Blind Boy do a little bit. Like, it's interesting that it actually does really resonate, because I think people feel starved of that, or have done for a long time.
Oh yeah, well, I get messages from lads on the podcast, because I mean, just by its very nature, it would be, even though when you look at the demographics, it's actually 46-54 men to women, but right. I get a lot of messages from blokes basically who just can't really talk to their friends and stuff, or they feel they can't. So I make a purpose every so often to chime in on the podcast about that. But now I know. The thing is, I'll make a point right at the top of what I'm saying. I'm no fucking expert. In fact, far from it. And that's something I think the cynic in me every so often with the likes of Blind Boy, sometimes I kind of have to pull back and go, hold on to fuck now, Blind Boy. You're no expert. You're quoting from experts too, which personally I just feel I have to say that. But it is a good thing to pop it in there every so often. It's all right. You know what I mean? To actually talk about your emotions. But at the same time, if you don't feel you want to talk about it, or you don't have issues, don't feel you're boxing, because that's another thing too. I get messages from women as well, kind of saying it would seem to be trendy right now to be talking about your emotions and being, almost melancholy all the time. And a lot of people they don't have that on their lexicon. They're happy tipping away, and they almost feel embarrassed to not have something to say too, like, or they're happy just to tip away
couple of pints at the weekend, maybe puck a ball around as well on a Sunday. Going, they live a simplistic life and they're happy with that. So when their heroes, i.e. Tiernan or whatever, are talking about the briars of emotions that they live amongst on a daily basis, and they're going, I have ham and cheese sandwiches every day and I love them. So sometimes you have to straddle both sides of the fence, I find, and go, look, not everybody's struggling, but for the people that are struggling, leave it open. And I told this story before. Another place I lived out the country, a place called Broadford. It's out by Kinnegad, between Kinnegad and Enfield. And they had developed these a lot of these, I suppose, middle-aged single farmers, lads, they were the youngest son, they got left the 100 acres. And now all the women have gone away. So there's no fucking women. So all these lads are kind of left around. But their way of dealing with mental health was rough and crude, but it was streets ahead of what you think they were. Like there was a lad there sitting in the pub, and I was amongst them and whatever, and they were saying, "What's wrong with you today?" Aries, the fucking head isn't great with me. Fucking, I was thinking about herself. He was the first man in Ireland, as it turns out, this guy to ever get divorced. Turns out she was cheating with the coal man, and this stuff it's a fucking sitcom sitting there, like, you know what I mean? Some of the stuff, but the whole group of lads around the pub went, "Hi, don't be fucking hiding that shit. Be talking about that stuff. Don't want to find you on the end of a fucking rope." And you're like, okay, you went straight there with it, lads.
Yeah.
But it was, don't be hiding those emotions. And these are all blokes in their 50s, and you go, but we're being told these lads don't know how to deal with that stuff. Turns out they did in their own fucking way. Now, there was no Dr. Phil's or Oprah hugs going on either. Like, so your man just unloaded his heart to the pub for 20 minutes. Nice. And he felt powerful after it. And I just stood there in awe going, right, okay, this is completely recalibrated what I thought. Because you would assume in the countryside, it'd be all like, a fucking scene from The Field where Tyga's looking at the ground, like,
Yeah.
But you are right, I think. And for those fellas, they'd be on board with what you're talking about too, being fucking critically heartbroken, forever a singleton kind of a thing. Like, because these lads, they ain't ever getting fucking married, any of them, like,
Yeah, like, and it's interesting because I think you're right. Like, I think it's, you meet people where they're at, and like that, that's amazing. Like, I love seeing that when, like, sure, I see it with my friends, like, and it's interesting as well, being from the country and coming from, like, like a sports background and GAA background, and then going into a real artsy world where, like, your kind of feelings are your currency in ways. But then like, I go back to the lads here who I love and who I laugh with more than anything. But like the way we'll connect is by just ripping, like, strips off each other. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that is like, but that is how, like, it sounds cliche, but that is how we, like, show love. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what you do. And like, and I think that's what's interesting about, like, doing that show, because like I was saying to you, like, there's an element of embarrassment about it, because I really am showing me at, like, my worst, or not even my worst, but like my most vulnerable. But I think for me in that show, like, the job of it was to be like I'm willing to sort of show, and I even exaggerate, like, in comedy, like, I will make it like that little bit worse. I'll turn up the heat and that, because I know it's like, it's sort of, there's just a vulnerability to it, which I think is what people can get on board with me. But you turn that up, and it is amazing. Like, people will sort of, I'm sure you have it, like, people will always be like, "Oh, it's so brave, it's so brave, it's so brave." And like, for me, it actually, like, it doesn't feel brave at all, to be honest. Like, I'm doing it because, like, it's a way, like, again, like, I'm sure there's a bit of ego there, but there's also a bit of, like, I know this is how to sort of, to get you as well. Like, and it's interesting to use those shit things or those bad things, because ultimately the show is about, like, a horrible time. Like, sort of, I kind of use it as, like, one of the ways I'm trying to phrase it is, like, to learn to dance in the rain of heartbreak, and to sort of celebrate, like, all right, yeah, like, life is shit and it's got all these shit bits, but also, like, anything that can make you feel that bad, it's only because the other extremity of it is so fucking good. And it's like, well, you can't get one without the other, so let's dance in all of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's I mean, it's again an old cliche, but any comedian that goes on holidays does not want it to go well, because they want a story. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to hear a good story coming back out of a fucking holiday, like, right. And that's what people want to jump on board with too. Yeah. And also, I mean, that's why I probably lean into the culture thing heavy, because it's a ridiculous character. So it is a version of yourself, but at the same time, you turn the juice up, like, because nobody wants to see a normal to hear a normal person up there. Like, was the idea then, because you're doing stand-up as well, is that to kind of sharpen your knives for such a situation? Or is it you're like, fuck this, I'm giving stand-up a go too? Because a lot of actors wouldn't, no fucking way would they give it a go, like.
Oh no, I'm proper giving it a go. I love stand-up, and I love, like, I've got such fucking... I love it. Because I love how hard it is. I have such respect for it as a thing, and I love that it's kind of all on you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're in a play and it goes bad, yeah, well, the writing was shit, or like, yeah, that director didn't know what they were on about, or like the rest of the cast, like, we didn't gel. Where stand up, no, it doesn't matter. Like, it's problem solving, like, on the spot, in the moment, like, and really, like, even if you're like, you know the way sometimes you'll hear comedians being like, oh, that's a shit crowd or whatever, and like that pharmacy crowd, like, we all know what that looks like, but ultimately no one gives a shit. It's your job to go and make whatever it is work, and I love that. It's
almost like now this isn't my wording, this is to repeat, he's an MMA fighter called Will Fleury,
right.
And in talking with him, he went, Jesus, and it was actually kind of off air, he went, Jesus, there's a lot of similarities mentally between stand-up and having to fight.
Yeah,
because once the door closes behind you on the cage, and I'm totally not comparing myself to a fucking pro fighter or stand-up stuff, quite the fucking opposite actually physically. Yeah. But he's mentally, it's all on you at that stage. And if you get your trousers pulled down, nobody gives a fuck. Yeah. It's all on you. You know, you can turn around and blame the judges and all the rest. He says, but the bottom line is I should have fucking knocked him out. I didn't do a good enough job to knock him out. And he says, and it's kind of the same way with G. As a straight stand-up, you know, sure, some lads will hide behind a guitar, you know, or whatever. But the reality is if you're doing just straight stand-up, it's just you and a mic. Or someplace like the International, which up until recently didn't have a fucking mic.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking yesterday before it was just a bad recording. And you were asking what my thinking. And I think see, when I worked in construction, because things were at such a pace back in the day, everything was all on you, but also there was nearly a leniency for not having to stay between the lines if the job got done and got done well. So all at 100 miles an hour. So your problem solving while on the job, it's kind of fulfilled that same thing. You know what I mean? There's no fluff. There's no arguing with it. Like, yes, it can be subjective, and I've sat there when, I suppose, you know, we'll call them a comedian of sorts, but because they're of a trendy vibe at the current time, you'll see people sit there and afterwards they go, amazing. Like, I went to a blind boy gig one time, live podcast, and he must have maybe spoke for 3 minutes through an hour, and the guest he talked about the likes of lizards and stuff for 57 minutes of that, and people walked away going, blind boy's amazing. You're like, hold on now, lads, hold on to fuck. So sometimes that can be, you know. So that's the subjective side. But the reality is, when people, you know, when you're in a comedy club, bottom line is you have to be able to fucking get the job done yourself. And I suppose when you take that back into the likes of your show in Smock Alley, your fucking knives would be proper sharp, you know, because if you gave your show to another actor and said, here, work with that. Because did you direct yourself? Did you bring anybody else in for help?
Yeah, I sort of had outside eyes on it. I have one of my best friends, and like, she's purposely one of my best friends, and she's a theatre maker and a director, but I more brought her in because she loves stand-up. Because it's funny, in making the show, and this was actually a real lesson, like, I showed it to a few friends, like writer friends, but they'd be more theatre based, you know, and like theatre makers. And and it was useful because I got some really good feedback and stuff about it, but also I was kind of like, oh yeah, like, you don't like stand-up comedy, like, as a medium, like, you don't like a lot of the problems with it were like, they were kind of like, yeah, no, it's really good and it's really funny, and like, they were laughing when we were reading it and stuff, and but then at a certain point they were just like, but like, it's all sort of true and it's all about you, and they're like, I don't really get it. And I was like, and it made me feel really self-conscious for a minute, because I was like, oh shit, like, is this just some totally narcissistic trip, like, where I'm like, am I using like an audience as therapist?
Now you're a stand-up comedian. You're a fucking narcissist. There you go. You can admit it.
Yeah, totally. And I was like, no, like, that's not what it is. Like, I have specifics in my situation that I know feel specific to me, but like, ultimately, if I talk about them, they're not going to end up being that specific, and other people are going to relate, and other people will laugh at it, and I think other people will actually feel like, I think one of the things that I really like I was interested to ask you this yesterday. I didn't get a chance, but one of the things I like, right, for me, in in making whatever it is. Like, I use the term with no pretense about it, but let's just say art. And I mean under that, like under acting, writing, whether it's like film, TV, theatre, comedy, it doesn't matter. But like under that umbrella, because we straddle a few of those spheres. For me, I think like there's a couple of things I do, but I love the idea of bringing joy. I love that as an idea of bringing joy to people. And I love the idea of making people feel a little bit less alone. Like, whether that's in like the dark parts of their thoughts, or in like, even just in like, you know, facilitating laughter of a room full of people, whatever that looks like, I don't really mind. But those are two, like, sort of, without getting on a fucking, like, you know, preacher box about it, but they're two things that I think are really valid things to do with your life, is to bring joy and to make people feel less alone in the world. And I was like, I think that I can do that best through this medium right now. But I was curious for you, like, in the different things that you do, is there a common thread, something like that resonates across it all, or is it all very, what's your relationship to that?
It must be. I don't overly think about it too much, because if I did, I'd get stressed out, you know, that kind of way. I've found that I've only a certain level of capacity. I've unbelievably driven, but if I start sweating about all the other stuff, but I would imagine there has to be a thread of that. But it's almost like the fighter thing. Who wants to be the toughest guy in the room? Who wants to be the funniest guy in the room? They both kind of carry a bit of weight to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And what is the reason behind that? Is it because you have something to prove? Maybe I do. Do you know? Maybe I do. I don't know. I mean, I can't think of a bad childhood that I had or anything like that. So I would imagine it's probably just the enjoyment of bringing joy to people. And probably it's feeding into my ego a little bit too. Like, because let's be honest, you do nice things for people to make yourself feel good. Totally. You know, you can dress it up whatever way you want, but the bottom line is it makes you feel good at the end of the day, you know. So I suppose it probably is the same thing to a certain degree, is actually just bringing joy to people. And I don't put too much, I should probably think about it maybe more, or maybe I get nervous, I don't know. But it's actually through the podcast as well. People have messaged me, especially from abroad, people who are missing home, like, fuck, you know what I mean? They're going, this is a service you're providing. I'm going, what? You don't really think about it that way. You know what I mean? You go, oh, well, Jesus. And people have come up to me after gigs and gone, man, I've had the fucking worst month of my life, like, and that put me right in a good place. Like, fuck, okay, right. I've never, you know, I would never consider that there's people. If I did consider that, I'd probably shit the bed. But there are people in the audience who fucking almost medically need it.
Oh, it's so true. Like, I heard there's a brilliant Irish actor, Aaron Monaghan's his name. He's a theatre guy. He'd be doing loads of druid stuff. He's like in the Abbey all the time. He's a great actor. But I remember listening to a podcast with him on it, and I'll never forget it. But like that, and now he wouldn't be like, I wouldn't consider him like. I'm sure on some level we're all the same, but like he is an artist, you know what I mean? An artiste. Right? Yeah. And I say that with total respect. He's fucking unbelievable at what he does. But what I'm saying to you, it was really interesting. And I'll never forget it. One time he said, whenever I go on stage, like whatever I'm doing, and some days like I don't want to, or I don't feel in the mood, but I just remember there is someone out there that, as you said, like needs this. Like, it's not that they're here for the crack, or they're here as a gift. Like, there's loads of that, absolutely. But there's someone out there who actually needs this. And I think even now you really see it. I feel it now with, like, because I love podcasts, I listen to hours of podcasts, and like even now, especially, I've heard other people say it to me in the last day or so, like the fact that podcasts and things like that are still coming out in this crazy time, it actually is making people feel, oh, all right, like, because I guarantee you the people who listen to this podcast, they're not listening for the guests, they're not listening for me, they're not listening to the rugby players, they're listening for you, because you're their friend. You know what I mean? They love you.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's been going 3.5 years at this stage. So, and there are people that are virtual friends on it. You know, I've never met them or anything, but we still converse, and I'm doing it for them. So it's a very valid point. It is a service. Like, I did one a couple of, it's Saturday? I can't even remember because it got slightly drunk. But I did it live as well, and you could see people were jumping on, fucking delighted. There was absolutely no talk about the situation that's going on. It all dipped straight away into the gutter, and we talked about dick memes for a good 45 minutes of dick memes, and the background to each, you know, like the big black lad with the 2-foot long cock and stuff like that. And it just, well, people went off and Googled stuff then, you know what I mean? Like, afterwards, lads were messaging, people were messaging, girls were messaging, going, oh, thanks for that. Because the telly is, sick of the telly, just sitting on their phone, maybe sipping an old vino or whatever, having a can. Then it felt like a service. It was like, oh, this is what this is supposed to be about, right?
Because I think that's what, like, I was talking to a friend and being just like, the hard thing I think about like the coronavirus, and like please take this with a pinch of salt in the sense that look, we're, like I'm safe and I'm not sick and I'm in a house and all these. I know there's like a load of privilege coming there, but let's just put that aside and talk honestly. The hard thing about it is that it attacks your community, and it attacks your ability to be in a room with people and to touch people and to do these things that like you don't realize are actually so fundamental, and I would argue the most important and like most joyous parts of being a human being. And this virus and the way that it has to be combated attacks all of that. And as I said, like even like the kind of tragedy of like hearing these stories of like old people who have to die in a room alone and can't hold the hands of their children because they have the virus and the virus can't spread. Like that's like the extreme end of it. And then the lower end of it is just like, well, I don't know, whatever it is, whether it's like family and friends being separated, grandchildren from grandparents, or like, you know, couples who don't live together, all this sort of stuff. But like it attacks that fundamental need for like community and touch and human connection. And that's nasty. Do you know what I mean? Very
much an Irish thing too. Like, you know what I mean? Like it whips away all of that. I mean, for the want of a better example, the AIDS epidemic. You cannot have sex. You know what I mean? Blood transfusion. But you could still shake hands with somebody, you could give them a hug, you could give them a fist bump, you could still go to the pub and chat with. So, you know, This is just actually out of fear. It's just like, no, you can't be around each other.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was 15 years ago when we didn't have Skype or podcasts or whatever, the depression levels, I would imagine, would go through the fucking roof. Like
100%. 100. Do you know, actually, that's a really good point. Like, because even what you were saying about that place you were living near Enfield, like before, and those men who had that system in place, like, what do those boys do now? Do you know, like that? Like that's a real thing. Like that's the dark side of it. Like, and that is proper dark, because you forget that, like, you know, people are lucky and they've got good networks of friends and stuff. And even that, like like I was thinking this the other day. I was like, I have so many friends. Like, I have the most friends of anyone I know, and also I don't know if I have any friends. Like, do you know that kind of way? Like, I was having this thought the other day, and but like for those people who actually really do have a smaller network, or like, and they live by themselves. Like even for me, I live in an apartment in Rathmines and I share it with a fella, but he's from Monaghan and he went home because he got the nod to work from home, and I was there, and like I just happened to get sick with tonsillitis and had to move, and I was like, oh, I'm actually super sick, like I kind of need to be looked after a little bit, and I'm very lucky to have a mom and a dad, and I was able to move back home with them for a little while. But like otherwise I would have been in Rathmines for, I don't know how long this lockdown's going to go for, but in a little apartment, like in a little block of flats for, I don't know, like maybe 6 weeks by myself. And like, what happens then? Like there's an actual darkness to that. Like,
yeah. I mean, and on top of that, I mean, it's taken away people's ability to work too. Like, you know, if you can, working from home is all well and good and all the rest, but if you can't, like, more or less our work has been whipped from under us.
Yeah. And
it's very dehumanizing, isn't it? To just go, nah, that's it. We're not saying you're worthless, but you're kind of fucking worthless for now. You know, get out of the way. Yeah, that small bit.
Totally. Like, and you know, I don't know what I would do, because, and as well, like, it makes me think as well, I don't know what your relationship to this is, but like, my work is a huge part of my identity. Like, I one of the things I like about myself is that I am an actor and a comedian and a writer. Like, I love those things, and they're like some of my favorite things to do, and I actually have a lot of my value and self-esteem tied up in them. And I think that's why I love writing, because no one can take it away from you. And It's funny, actually, I was listening to your podcast with Ali O'Rourke the other day, and you were having like, I knew what she was talking about. It was on that Rent-A-Comic thing, but there was a big debate going on about like comedians calling themselves comedians when they don't make their full-time living off comedy, and like whether that's valid or not. And I was like, that's fucking nonsense. Because for me, like, the minute you stand on stage and do comedy, you're a comedian, and the minute you pick up a pen and start writing, you're a writer. Like, that's what's beautiful about it. There's no barrier to entry. Like, they're like, it's like writing is a verb. Like, you do it, then you're a writer. You know what I mean? Okay, if you want to say like professional writer or professional comedian, totally accept. That's a different thing. But it like, what's been great about it is like that you can still tap away and do your bit of writing or whatever. Because like, I don't know about you, I love all the jobs where I get to go and stand in front of audiences and whatever that looks like, and just connect with people. Like, it's like my fucking mass. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. It's and when that's taken away, and as well, like, it will be interesting when you come out with this, because, you know, I try not to like get in a soapbox about it, but like sometimes I know, like, artists and stuff, or like actors or comedians, wherever, you can feel, because the lifestyle can be difficult and financially it can be precarious, as we're seeing now, the real value of what actors and writers and all that stuff is doing now. Like literally everyone is spending all their time on Netflix or reading a book, or it is all, you don't think of it as like the arts or like show business, but that is a huge part of what will get people through this. And it sounds trite, but it's actually not. Like, it gives people so much meaning, and and again, just like connection and distraction and whatever you want to call it in a time like this. And yeah, like, I'm always careful, because you don't want to go down that path of being like, because I don't like when comedians or actors go like, oh, well, I'm not saving lives, because it's like, yeah, you're not, but like, no one's fucking asking you shit. Like, we have doctors for that. Like, it doesn't invalidate your service, and at the same time, you don't want to be like, what I do is the most important thing, and I am this like gift to the world. But it is funny how you sort of see the value of it now, even in a time when the value of it's been totally depreciated because you can't fucking do it. You see it in another way, and there's something kind of ingratiating about that, I think.
That's it, yeah. I mean, if Netflix was shut down in the morning,
people will go bananas.
Netflix is full of actors,
Yeah.
comedians and all the rest of it. So yeah, that's a really valid point. I probably didn't think too much about it. Where did you studied drama, didn't you?
Yeah, so I studied in DIT. It's a drama performance, and it's a great course. It's 3 years, and you get a degree out of it, which was obviously like attractive. Now I was lucky; I didn't have parents that were super. My parents were like kind of appropriately cynical about me going into like acting, because when I was that age, actually for me it was musical theatre. I wanted to go and be in Les Mis for the rest of my life.
Right.
That's what I wanted to do, and I like, because I'm a singer and I play music and that kind of thing. But yeah, ultimately, like when I went into DIT and I got to go to the States and go to Chicago and study there, and it was kind of there I discovered like writing, and we did this class called solo performance, which was just amazing. And you kind of wrote about yourself, like you stood on stage, not as an actor, but like just as a person, not as a character, basically. And you were given prompts to write about. It could be anything like mom or dad or death or a historical figure or like a rant or sex or love. It could be anything. But you're basically, and it was, now in hindsight, I'm like, that is how I got into stand-up comedy. Now, in this class, there was no pressure to be funny, but if you're funny, you'll just be funny. You won't have to try. And like the funny came kind of out with me, even when I wasn't really trying to be funny. But what I really liked was, being on like in front of a group of people and having written the thing and performing the thing. And ultimately that weaved into stand-up comedy. But like, my background would be in like classical actor training, which I'm grateful for, but also like I've fucked a load of it away.
But where does a lad playing football in fucking Dunboyne go, I want to be in Les Mis, put me in Les Mis? How are you not a guard, is what I'm asking, basically.
Yeah, I know. And my granddad was Garda commissioner, so it was all set up for me. Do you know?
Stop.
Yeah. Larry Wren. Yeah, he was a great man. He passed away a few years ago, but I got to play a guard in Copperface Jack's the musical, so that was nice, getting to wear the uniform. Do you know? And actually, weirdly, do you know a weird thing, right? Like, you probably, I know you're married and stuff, so you probably missed this. Do you never experience like online dating or dating apps? Did you?
I knew of them, but no, I didn't.
Like,
I have a lot of friends who fill me in all the fucking time.
Oh yeah, like it's a bit grim, to be honest. Like, but look, anyway, I've used them before, and I'm sure I'll use them again. But one of the pictures I have up is of me from Coppers the Musical in a Garda outfit, and I would
dirty fucker, yeah.
Yeah, and I would. Well, dirty fuckers them, because it's by far the most swiped photo on. You know what I mean?
Is it?
Like, yeah, 100%, absolutely. But yeah, in terms of like that journey, like, yeah, it was. I had a great teacher. Like, I think loads of people who get into this sort of thing. I had a great music teacher, and she was just a brilliant woman, Pat Morris, and she just really encouraged me. And like, also, to be fair, being a straight lad who was 6 foot, like, if you could sing, you were automatically like an attractive prospect for like the musicals in school and all that sort of stuff, because like lads, I think even now it's probably changed a little bit, and I was probably on the crest of when it started to change, but like there was that thing of like, that's gay, and I was fairly like pig-headed in the sense of like that I wouldn't have let that get to me, and I was like, look, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I was sort of, I was lucky in the sense that I played a lot of sports and stuff like that, and it kind of balanced out appropriately. But like, it was a bit of a like High School Musical vibe going on. Sometimes like I'd be running from like choir or orchestra practice out onto the pitch and, you know, crack like that. But yeah, and from there, like, but my folks were kind of cynical about, like, in a really nice way, in a way that I would be myself. They were like, right, you can do this, and, like, you know, went and got singing lessons, and I actually worked on it as a 16, 17-year-old. And when it came to 18 and leaving cert time, they basically asked my singing teacher, who again was a great woman, Christine Scarry, and they were like, they just sat down with her, and she would have kind of, I suppose, seen students go on who would have made it, like, in the West End and that kind of thing, and they were like, look, Tom loves this, you've been with him for 2 years, you know, we're happy for him to go for it, but we also would like to know, just, are we barking up the wrong tree here? Like, does he sort of have a chance? Because it's obviously, like anywhere like that, it's totally precarious. And she was like, no, he absolutely does, but then gave some really practical advice. For example, don't go and study musical theatre, go and study acting, because if you study musical theatre, you very much get pigeonholed into musical theatre. Whereas, like, yeah, with my life now, it's nice because I can go into comedy, I can go into musical theatre, and I can go into acting, I can go into all that. So yeah, there was like there was a healthy sort of cynicism about, like, look, this is really fucking hard, and give yourself the best chance. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that, because, you know yourself, it's fucking hard enough without pigeonholing yourself and making it even harder.
I like that. I suppose you tying in your stand-up comedy and everything else. Like I said, you're sharpening the tools now for whatever's put in front of you, like, because if you got a straight role, you're good to go, you know, but you get a comedic role and you're like, absolutely, I'm also good to go. Because talking with Johnny Ward, he keeps on sending me, now there's a good man now for sending dick memes. Oh my God.
Yeah, totally.
Every day. He was saying, like, there's no fucking way. He's very funny on stage. Yeah. Comedically very funny, but he said there's no fucking way he would give stand-up a go. And I was saying, you actually should give it a go. You're intelligent enough to wrap your head around it. He's like, nah. And the guy has it, because we were in Panto together, and every day he had a new line hidden in somewhere, like, or I would. Now, certain actors you couldn't do that to, because they go, what the fuck? You know yourself. You're like, that's not in the book.
Yeah,
like, but he was well capable for it, and any curveball I threw him, and that's why I was trying to encourage him. I said, Matt, it will benefit you. I bluffed out a stand-up into acting, not the other way around, and it had me ready. I didn't have any hang-ups, because I just went, well, I suppose I'll do what I'm doing. You know, and everybody else around me went, oh no, that's actually fine.
But
right?
You know, that's the thing, because, like, I was only saying that to one of my pals recently. Like, the problem with going and training and going to drama school, and again, I think it's a good thing, and I think you should do it. And I think if you're going to do it, like, if you want to do it, I think you should do it. But the problem with it is it knocks a lot of the you out of it. And I didn't even realize at the time, because, to be fair, it also knocked a lot of stuff that needed to be knocked out of me, like a self-consciousness. And there was an absolute need for that. Like, for me, I think in hindsight, Adam, maybe I'm making sense of myself, but it was the right thing. But also, it's funny now, even like being, I don't know, I finished in 2015, so, like, you know, nearly 5 years out the gates now at this stage, and seeing how basically everyone who's still doing it, or even still interested in doing it, it's taken them pretty much 5 years, or like 3, 4, 5 years to get back to probably where they were at. And I mean that in the best way of being like, for example, if you went to drama school, there's every chance they would have been like, Tom, you need to stop being so fucking coachy, man. Like, this is not surgery. Whereas the thing that makes you special, and that makes you funny, and that makes you engaged, and that makes you real is exactly that. And you can't let that get knocked out of you. You know what I mean? And drama school has it. If you're not strong enough in yourself, it will do that. It will shave you into, and I don't want to say like just an archetype or something like that, but there is a tendency for that. And then ultimately you have to go back and like embrace the fact, no, like, I don't need to walk perfectly, and maybe I don't need to practice Alexander technique and have a straight back all the time. Like, maybe who I am is actually valid as it is, and that's actually what's special about me, and ultimately that's what audiences will connect to.
Would they have left you that way though? Do you know what I mean? Because there has to be an ego nature in the teacher too, like, is going, no, I'll fucking make you what I, you know, almost like the army, I will break you down and build you back up again, like, you know, and this is what I do, because I'm not letting you out the gate being an original version of yourself when you go out. I'm just wondering, like, if you did stick your heels in and go, no, I'm comfortable, I just want to learn a bit off you here for the next 3 years, would they have allowed that? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I think some would and some wouldn't, you know that way. And I think you're right. Like, for me, and I think that's what makes a great director, is someone who's able to just, like, you know, that the best idea wins. And if you can get, like, for me, a lot of the job of a director is like shaping the thing absolutely into the thing, but also letting the thing be the thing it wants to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. And not getting in the way and not fucking pissing your vision all over it. Like, sometimes that's actually not healthy. Like, most of the clues are in the writing, and they're in the people that you cast to bring the writing to life. And absolutely. Now, sometimes you need to reel people in, and you need to say, like, this is not the time for that, or whatever. I totally, and I fucking love directors. I have so much respect for them. But when you see a good one, you're actually like, oh, they're actually not doing that much. They're kind of getting out of the way. Yeah. I had the weird experience of being on the other side of the audition table recently, right? And seeing people come in and audition. And like, I think I was saying this to you yesterday, but like, the thing that was left for me after that was just like, Jesus Christ, actors are class. Like, comedians are class. Like, they're coming into this room at like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, and they're trying to like do a thing. They're trying to be someone who's not them and bring this right into life and juggle all these balls and come in and yeah, just try to make sense of this weird thing. Like, that process of like, whether it's auditioning or acting or rehearsing or whatever, it's all weird. Like, actually, you know, you were talking about like, you know, your own capacity for like not overthinking what you're doing. Like, I have that with acting, because if I stand back and like think about it too hard, I'm like, oh my god, this is so fucking stupid. Like, I can't. Yeah. Especially, do you know, it's actually especially if I'm not in comedy. Like, if I'm doing a big drama and like you just see yourself and you're fucking giving it load, like, and I'm like, this is mad. Like, and so it's just left with such respect for like, these people are class. And like, when you were in an audition room, you also seen that like everyone. I thought I'd go into an audition room and I'd say that day was one part they were auditioning for, and I'd say they seen 10 people, and I was sure in my bones that someone would come in and straight away they'd start and you'd be like, yep, that's it, like, close the shutters. And it actually didn't happen like that at all. Like, everyone came in. Now, I'm not going to lie, there was about half of them that you were just like, yeah, this isn't for them. Like, I'm sure they're great in another thing, but this world isn't for them, and that's cool. But the other half, you were like, yeah, their version of this is absolutely valid and it would work and it would fit. And then like, ultimately, like, what it comes down to as well is like, and you really get a sense this in audition room was like, who's fucking sound, who's good crack, who's like got their head screwed on, who's going to be like on time, who's not going to be a nightmare in a dressing room. And like, you really forget that like, that is actually, I would argue, more than half the battle. If you can come in and be like, I am smart, I will be able to take direction, I will be easy to work with, I will be a nice presence in a room, you're halfway there. The rest of it is just like, oh, can he do the thing?
I mean, I've always thought that way, you know, you're going to be a good team player, because honestly, the organics of it will come across. Like we were talking briefly yesterday about that if it doesn't look organic, it may look grand on paper, but even the organics of a thing will come across on TV. Like when we were doing that Galway Comedy Festival, the thing that was out, Laughter in the Air, and I've talked about this in the podcast before when people have asked. A woman went to stop me just as it was about to go on stage because she needed something struck from the stage, something cleared. I went, are you out of your fucking mind? You think you can herd all these sober people into a room, a tent in the middle of Ayr Square in the middle of the day, put 10 cameras in the room and they're not going to be weirded out? The MC had worked his balls off for 15 minutes to make an organic vibe because he knew we all needed it, but also the camera needed it and the audience at home needed it.
Yeah.
And she went, can you just freeze there for 30 seconds? And I went, no, I fucking can't. But the same thing applies. Like, if, I suppose, a cast in a play or a musical or whatever don't come across like they're actually enjoying each other's company, especially if it's a comedy, because there's got to be a bit of tongue-in-cheek, like, you know what I mean? Like that Coppers. There isn't a person in the world who don't have a smirk on their face, who has heard of Coppers and goes, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's to be about, is, oh yeah. You know, I remember it was Ward that actually said it to me down in, and I hadn't put much thought into it because he came down to the UCH Panto with us in Limerick. And 2 days in, it was ball breaking from the word go. Like he wasn't in the door 2 seconds. Oh. We were changing into our uniforms or into our costumes or whatever, and Johnny's in Savage Nick, like, you know. And as we both know, he's a lovely fella, but he probably was a bit apprehensive and just wanted to, you know. And as soon as his top come off, I went, oh, the fat cunt is in. And you could see him kind of look, and then we all just started giving him shit for being fat, like, and there's a pick on the lad, like, you know what I mean? He's in Savage Nick. And from there, he said I could take a sigh of relief. It was like, this is going to be a good crack. And this is what was interesting was a couple of years previous, there was an actor on board who was very big in the amateur scene, because it's very much a pro panto, but couldn't hack it because there was nobody patting each other on the back either, to a certain degree. We were all work colleagues who got on well, but there was nobody going, you are amazing. Did I tell you are amazing? That solo you just did there was amazing. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you did it this morning. You did it yesterday. Pull up your trousers and get on with the fucking job. Like, and that was the vibe. And it suited the likes of Ward, and he didn't realise he ended up loving it. He was like, fuck, the chemistry around here is great crack. Everybody has a trust that the job will get done to the best of our ability, but there's no pressure there's no egos in egos weren't accepted. You know, that kind of way. It was like, no, we're all in this together to make a good product, you know?
Oh, that is huge. And I think actually like Johnny is a brilliant example of it, because I got to do Copper's musical with Johnny, and he is the perfect example of a fella who comes in and, because certainly in Coppers, like, because I know he played your baddie, didn't he, in Limerick? Yeah. Whereas in Coppers, like, you know, obviously the baddie is like a huge part of Panto, but like in Coppers, it's literally like he's Gino, he's the main man. For anyone who's seen the show, like, you know what I mean. But he's like the captain of the Dublin senior football team. He's the romantic interest. He's all of it. Like, he is the focal point of the show, and it was the best example I'd ever seen in a fella coming in and making. I don't want to use stupid words, but indulge me, like making a cast a family. And like coming in and including everyone and slagging everyone, and that's how he did it, and also being up for slagging himself. And I don't know if he did a thing with us where he'd write a song about everyone in the cast, before every show he'd pretty much bang up a song on our WhatsApp group that he'd have written. So like it could have been, you know, Hey Jude, but he changed the words to like, you know, whatever it was, like, and just things like that really like bring a cast together, but in a really organic way. And like it was just such good leadership without ever feeling like you were being led, you know what I mean? Like real subtle thing, but I was like, oh, that's what it is to be a fucking leading man and a nice person, and also just fun to be around.
Years ago, myself and Carl Spain were in one, and like that you were talking about when you joined drama school or whatever, and you'd gone from ripping the piss with your mates into, you know, being emotional and whatnot is your currency. And these people weren't ready for Carl Spain. Like myself and Carl, we had a dressing room and we just, I mean, it was roast. We had nothing good to say to each other, but that's how we got on. Like, and it was just roasting, like horrendous stuff. And everybody got it around Carl. And within a couple of days, I had to pull him in and go, Carl, it ain't working on some of these folks, especially the dancers.
Right.
More so the dancers, because you know, they're very emotional. They're very promiscuous bunch who all lie on top of each other and whatnot, and they, you know, they speak like they're actually on a reality TV show, you know. And I just found it very interesting the way they speak. It's all dramatics about relationships. That's how that's their whole conversation. And Carl rolls in and starts giving them shit from the highest level, and they just weren't. They were getting upset and taking it literally. And so I had to give him a pep talk and give them a pep talk and go, you need to wind it in, and also you need to not take him so seriously. That means he really likes you. If he doesn't talk to you, he doesn't fucking like you, you know. And they had never come across that concept before, like, you know.
Well, no, it's so true, because like if someone is, because I think I am the easiest person to slag in the world. Like I am just there for the taking.
Are you throwing a Ronnie, by the way?
It's a Coroni. Yeah, it's a Coroni. It's my Corona. Ronnie. Yeah, it's a coronavirus Ronnie. So it's it's not great right now, but it's about 6 days old. So I reckon by the time we're out, it should be something even more horrific. I hate it. I actually hate it. My isolation is actually fine, except for that every time I look in the mirror. I said I'd do it.
We're 53 minutes in, Tom, and I've just been eyeballing it going, is that a shadow? Has he just not been washing? What's going on?
Oh no! yeah, it's awful.
See, this is the curse of being the Celtic-blooded, white, fair-haired man. I also have a blonde mustache. It could be as strong as a moose, but it's blonde all the way out. You end up just looking kind of homeless by the end of it. There's no strength to unless it's a black mustache or a bright fucking orange mustache. They don't cut it. They don't.
No, I think what I might get away with is kind of looking like a porn star version of a 1916 Rising leader. I think I might get that far, but that's about it.
Yeah. Bit of brill cream in the hair, get it down, you know, get the Collins look going on, like.
Exactly.
You weren't tempted to do an exotic Joe and grow it down the sides as well, like, were you in dyed black? Have you been watching Tiger?
You know, my friend did that for Movember and he just looked like a walrus. I wasn't having it.
Sorry, I cut across you there. I've just been eyeballing it. I had 50 minutes with my breaking point. I just had to fucking say it.
I like how it took that long.
Yeah, listen, I'm a professional. I tried to keep... If this was a half-hour podcast, it would have never gotten a mention, like.
Totally. This is my dancer and you're my Carl Spain, you know?
Exactly.
I think I like it. Like, I think I like... As you're saying, I think that, like, I know myself, if I'm slagging you, it means I like you. And I think if someone's willing to sort of pay you, like, that much attention, it means that they fucking like you and they know you can take it. Like, for me, it would be, like, that'd be, like, a deal breaker for a friendship or even a relationship. Like if if you couldn't go there with someone, just wouldn't be for me. I don't like as much as possible. Now I'm like, you know, within reason, but like I kind of want to have friendships or relationships where you can kind of go anywhere. Like, that's kind of the point of it.
I think it's a very Irish thing too, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? Because I lived in the States for a while and they're so literal. And you say something and you're just ripping the piss and they're like, what? Oh, fuck, right. We need to start at the ground level here, so, and work up, you know, to explain I'm taking a fucking piss.
Oh, like the worst thing you can do well, for me, and I know not everyone's the same, and I've actually got in trouble for this once or twice, but like not like we had one in Coppers the musical. Now I think I was totally, well, I actually still think it was funny, but anyway, the fellas who wrote the music and the lyrics, they originally had a verse in a song which was about Gino, which was Johnny's character, who was also a clamper, and one of the lyrics was it was saying how much of a dickhead he was of a clamper, and they said, at his own mother's funeral, he clamped the hearse, and that was one of the lyrics. And then in our fourth week of rehearsals, before we went on, the guy who wrote that song, his mother died, and there was a message put into our WhatsApp group. So everyone was putting in like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear. And
I'm licking my lips at this now, go on.
I did the exact same, and it was a really heartfelt message. I was like, so sorry to hear, thinking of you and the family, fingers crossed, they won't clamp the hearse. And within like 30 seconds of it going up, but like Johnny rang me and he was like, man, you have to delete that like this second. And I was like, but no, like it's naming the thing. Like he wrote the song, he knows it's funny, he's a comedian, he like, you know, if I said that to you, or if God forbid something happened,
I love people to say that to me.
Me too. And I think but you have to make a judgment call, because some people wouldn't, and they're just not in that headspace. But for me, like I need that. It's, if you don't name the thing, then it becomes awkward, and then it becomes an elephant in the room. Then there's a stigma around it. Whereas if you make that joke or like whatever, and just break that tension, like everyone can just breathe. Then
Yeah. Well, I think coming from a comedic point of view, he'd probably, because he wrote that lyric, he probably would have appreciated. I certainly in that moment it would be like, oh, that's what I needed. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's what I fucking needed. Like, because, like, and I think people that write comedy and stuff, they understand that it's always funny, regardless of the situation. It was fucking funny before, and it's funny after. You know what I mean? And that's what I found in comedy clubs. Sometimes when people have an issue with a situation, you're like, oh, hold on. Now, I rarely get it, because I think the way I come across, people probably figure it's pointless, or they get it. They're like, oh, he's ridiculous. But a few of my friends I've been there. I've stood beside him as people come up. So my sister has a fucking bad leg, and I didn't enjoy that bit. And you're like, hold on, all the stuff about cancer and rape, you didn't mind any of that. Mm-hmm. But now because that related to you in a public forum, fuck off. No, you can't educate people on the spot either, because they're not comedians or they're not comedy writers or whatever.
Yeah.
But I totally full-heartedly agree. If it was funny beforehand, it's funny fucking afterwards. Like, funny is funny, you know?
Funny is funny. And I think like the more, because it is a real interesting thing, and you do see it now, and like I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of talking about social media and stuff like that, because Jesus Christ, you could be here all day. But like, if there is, I don't know, for me, like humor is just like the best thing. And it's, for example, right, where I want my sort of career to go is I'd love to be writing for film and TV, and also being in the shows, like someone like a Sharon Horgan or a Phoebe Waller-Bridges. I love that world, and I'd love to do that. And I like writing about like actual real life shit, and I like writing about like dramatic situations. But the minute it stops being funny, like even if I go see any kind of movie, any big drama, anything that wins an Oscar, like if none of it is funny, I don't buy it, because I'm like, well, it's just not real then. Like your dramas have to be comedic and your comedies have to be dramatic. For me, anyway, that's just my taste, like, because that's just what real life is, you know, like in those darkest moments, you know, like the darkest moments, like they're probably when you have the biggest laughs, and that's so cathartic, and there's a real beauty in that.
Now, I'm a cynic anyway, like, but when people get carried away with a thing, something in me has to find a weakness in it and go, oh, hold on now 1 second. Not because I'm a contrarian, but I'd probably keep it to myself a lot of the time, like, but I do love poking the stick too, and go, I know you all thought this is good, and I do it to Blind Boy, even though I know the guy's a genius. But there's times where I have to go, let's call a fucking spade a spade here, lads. Do you know, just to be a bollocks. But also, like, I was watching, people got properly carried away with the movie The Joker. I remember I tweeted about it, and it was like, unbelievable acting, fucking zero crack. Do you know? And for me, I was like, and I actually got roused from people about that. I went, well, it wasn't supposed to be about crack. I went, he's a fucking clown.
Yeah.
Who's gone mad. Jesus Christ, give any tick fucker a script, and that's the basis of it. There's going to be some crack pop up somewhere. Stick a bit of dark humor in it. I'll never forget, actually, my wife, she makes me fucking howl sometimes. We're watching it, and he's there. He's finally fucking snapped or whatever. He's trying to cool the brain down and trying to calm himself down. He rips everything out of the fucking fridge, and because it's the Joker, it's part of the whole Batman fucking storyline and everything. She's watching it with that mindset, because she's hoping fucking Batman is going to show up somewhere or something.
Yeah.
We're watching it, and he's ripping out all the stuff out of the fridge, and he climbs into the fridge and closes it behind him. She went, I knew she was only watching it with half an eye when she came out with this. She went, oh, here we go. I said, here we go, what? She goes, this is the bit where he turns into the penguin, isn't it? That's fucking beautiful. That would be a fucking amazing if he stood out as the penguin after being in the fridge for an hour. I went, what movie do you think? And I tweeted that, and people were nearly like, going, oh, come on. And you're like, would you ever fuck off? Like, that movie, it was great, really well acted, fucking, and for anybody who has deep mental issues, I'm sure it fucking rang through in some which way. But also, don't go around shooting people either, lads, But there was no crack. I don't know, for me, the same as you, it was like, well, fuck it, right, I'll walk away from that now.
Yeah, like, do you ever think about? I think about this all the time. Or, well, I think about it selfishly for myself. But looking at someone's career like Daniel Day-Lewis, and I'm like, that must be shit crack. Like, imagine it. Just all the fun parts about being part of a cast and the crack and the slagging and all that. Like, and I know he's a craftsman. I know he's incredible at what he does. But also, like, the whole thing that people love about him is that he deprives himself of like a real life to inhabit someone else's real life. But I'm like, that sounds I really have zero interest in that. I have great interest in doing brilliant performances in whatever medium that is, but not at the sacrifice of having a bit of fun.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody loves the little anecdotes about how he stays in character for so long, and he trained when he played the boxer, like he trained to the level that he couldn't have been a boxer. And Liam Neeson tells about when he gangs in New York at the fucking catering table, like. And he's like, oh, Dan, how are you getting on? He stayed in character, and he called him priest and stuff. And he was like, oh, Jesus Christ. But you're at a catering table. There's cameras everywhere. Relax. Also, then I have an admiration for somebody like Seth Rogen, who can play the same bloke. He basically plays himself in everything and gets away with it. But he's still enjoyable to watch,
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. Like, I think that's the charm of it. Like, because I hate that universe that is created, like, where, you can't go, like, for example, Daniel Day-Lewis will never do, like, an interview about that. It's like, I kind of would, like, I think people like Seth Rogen, not because they like the character Seth Rogen plays. They like Seth Rogen because they like Seth Rogen. You know what I mean? And I actually think there's something to be said for, like, seeing boys like that who their careers evolved. So, like, even looking at, like, Bradley Cooper or Matthew McConaughey, and these are lads who are winning Oscars now, but they started in, like, rom-coms, they started as being affable lads, and then they were on, like, chat shows and people got to know them, and you still totally buy them in a big dramatic role. Like, it's not about that. Sometimes, because I even remember hearing, like, when you're in drama school and, like, you listen to all these interviews with these great actors and hearing boys like De Niro or something saying, like, you don't want to do too many interviews, if you get to a level where people want to interview you, because then people will see you as you and not the character. And I'm just like, fuck that. That's not true. People aren't stupid. Like, they know it's pretend. You know what I mean? That's the fun of it. But, like, I still actually want to. I'd hate to have a career that ever stopped me from being me.
I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, and that was his whole thing. He could absolutely step outside himself and understood what he was. Like, he was this hulking colossus with a fucking, by all accounts, actually a Colchi Austrian accent, not even a city one. Really? A Colchi Austrian accent. That's why he couldn't get a gig in Austria or Germany, because he just sounded like a Colchi. But it was Clint Eastwood that said it to him, basically. But sure, just point out the elephant in the room, basically. And that's why in all of his movies, his action movies, there was always a couple of stupid outliners. Was it Commando or one of them? Basically, he broke a man's neck sitting beside him in the airplane. And he goes, could I get the blankets? My friend is dead tired. And you're like, that's so shit, but brilliant.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, you're dead right. Point out exactly and we can still get on board with you, Arnie, because you're massive and you are Arnie. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, it's huge, and like you see it with. I really like seeing boys like The Rock or something get into that world, because I fucking love when I see comedians go and like smash out. I love that, because even though I know we came from different angles, but like weirdly, sometimes I just want to say, like, it's not actually that hard. Like, it's kind of easy actually. Like, and especially good acting. Like, good acting is so boring. Like, if I want to do good acting, I just stop, like, I say good acting with inverted commas. What I'll do, right, if I want to do good acting right now, I'll basically stop talking like a person, like I'm talking to now on this chat, and I'll take everything down real quiet, and I'll start talking like this. And that's basically good acting. Like, that's what it is.
Chills. I got chills there, Tom.
You know what I mean? But, like, you see, like, one of the most iconic, 30 seconds of movie ever is, like, Liam Neeson, like, I will find you. And I will. And like, but you're just like, oh yeah, that's just a lad not talking like a lad. Like, and like, it's really compelling. But like, I'd love to hear Liam Neeson chat like we're chatting now. And like, sometimes I hate when actors are so like fucking uptight and mysterious. And like, you just want to see them go and be like a little bit goofy and a little bit themselves. So that's why I love when you see comedians go in and like smash it in an acting role. And you're kind of like, yeah, it's not complicated. And as you said earlier, like those skills, they absolutely inform each other. Like, I think if you can do stand-up comedy, I bet you have a great chance of doing anything else in any other level of performance, like especially like writing or acting. Like, I bet you can. Whereas I don't think the same is true. I don't think writers can do stand-up, and I'm not sure a lot of actors could do stand-up either. But I think if you can do stand-up comedy, not absolutely all stand-ups can't act, and like I've seen it go wrong. I'm sure you have too. But like, I think they've got a much better chance because you have that self-awareness, you have that, like, ability to relate to other people, and like, that's half the battle.
Also, you can dip back in. I find myself dipping back into the, life too, like, you know what I mean? So, like, I worked in construction for years. Like, give me any fucking alpha role. You know what I mean? And I'll find you a funny fucker somewhere that I worked with, Or you look at somebody like, I suppose, Kevin Hart, Jamie Foxx. These people were all stand-ups first.
Yeah.
They went on to be incredible fucking actors as a result of it, like, because I suppose they weren't inhibited, but also I suppose if Day-Lewis went to college somewhere, they broke him down, and he was the perfect creation that came out the other side. Fuck all personality, fuck all crack, but savage when you put a camera on him, like. Or I'd imagine on a stage too would probably be amazing as well, like.
Well, I don't know if you heard that story, but he doesn't do stage work because he does go so deep. That he was doing, I could be foggy in the details here, but I believe he was doing Hamlet, and he actually saw the actual ghost of his actual dad, ran off the stage, and has never done stage work since.
Oh, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Of course he would, like.
Yeah.
And hey, you'll be getting no dick memes off that lad, I'd say, if you're sharing the dressing room with.
No.
We'll wrap it up. So what's next on the card? I know what the fuck is next on the cards. The planet could end at the minute, but what's in the book? That is Copper's coming back again?
Yeah, so that's the hope, and I think Coppers is a really well placed show to come back. Look, we're meant to be back in the Olympia Theatre, the Cork Opera House, and in the Concert Hall in Limerick, and absolutely buzzing for it. And tickets are still on sale as of now. It's all going ahead, and it's happening over June and July, so there's a chance. But if not, it will happen later in the year when all this calms down. And I think it's the perfect show in the sense that, like, it's coppers, it's nurses, it's guards, it's GAA, it's the pillars of our community that we're kind of really relying on now. And like what we're talking about earlier, it's a bundle of laughs, it's a bundle of joy. So hopefully that'll be on later this year. And as well, my show, Comedically Heartbroken, my solo comedy show, hopefully be back up and running at some point when we get back to normality. But yeah, between now and then, I suppose you can get us on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff at Tom Moran 93, and sure, we'll all try stay sane together.
Jeez, that is how you wrap up a conversation. See that? That's a profession.
I'm a podcaster too, Tom.
I meant to get into that. You're a podcaster as well.
But so there's that there as well. It's personality bingo, and it's we play with a bingo machine, and there's 60 balls, 60 questions, 60 minutes. So it kind of keeps a freshness to the sort of the format. So the questions could be anything from like, have you ever seen a ghost, or what's the hardest time you've ever laughed, or your best relationship with someone over the age of 65, what are your memories of 9/11? It's like a mad zany kind of chat, no more than what you kind of do naturally here, but it's a bit of a format on that. So that's called personality bingo. So
we should do that sometime. Yeah,
I loved it. It's actually on a bit of a, I did it for 3 years, and then yourself, it's all encompassing when you're knocking one out every week. So I actually took a bit of a break from it because I'm the kind of fucker, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it right, or I don't want to do it. But but later this year, I think I'm going to remount it, hopefully in the run up to Comedically Heartbroken coming back on, and you'd be a dream guest. We'd have the crack.
Brilliant stuff. Tom Moran, or Tom Moran for anybody listening who isn't from Ireland.
Fuck off now.
Fuck off, O'Mahony.
Yeah.
Tom, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a million, brother.
Thanks very much, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thanks a million to Tom for coming on to do that one. Thanks very much. That's it, gang. Of course, Follow me on all usual social platforms. Tom O'Mahony Comedy will find it for the most part. If Chatty Snaps is your thing, Tom Bear O'Mahony will find it there. Don't forget to rate and review. People have been rating like fucking crazy. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, which I know about 60% of you are, and if you haven't rated it, give it an out 5-star. Maybe write a nice little note down the bottom. It'd be lovely. The idea is it doesn't feed really into my ego, although I do love it. What it does is it helps other people find it. It drives it up the charts for people to find. It drives it up towards the top that people can actually find it. And the more we find, the more Patreons we get, and the more people buying stuff from the merch shop, which means the more I can put into this. So, at the very least, if you don't want to do any of that, would you share it? Just whatever social platform you're using, would you throw up a link for it? Just to get more people involved. Right, that's that. Go on away, enjoy the weekend. I'll have a Tom and Jerry show out for you Sunday morning, just so you can sit back with an old fry up with a bit of a home hangover on you and listen to myself and McBride. Till next week, good luck and thanks.